to the Point of Impact podcast with Rick McDaniel. Thanks for joining us today. Get ready to be inspired and motivated to live a high-impact life. Now, here's Rick.
Welcome to the Point of Impact podcast. I'm Rick McDaniel. It's great to have you joining with us again today, and we are in this focus on regrets, talking about the 5 biggest regrets that people have in life. Started out last week, did the first regret, and today is regret number 2. Also did a message where I spoke live at a church where I talked about 4 keys to breaking free from regret. So you can listen to that. You can listen to last week's episode where we talked about the first regret. And today we're going to continue on by talking about the second regret. We're going to go through all 5, and just by way of reminder, this is from a palliative nurse in Australia. Bronnie Ware is her name, and probably about 20 years ago she wrote an article, later became a book, talking about her experience with dying people and the 5 biggest regrets that came out of that. Now, she didn't start with 5 regrets. She just kept hearing the same 5 regrets over and over and over again. So eventually she just realized, hey, this is it. These same patterns keep showing themselves over and over again in people's lives. And she wrote about it, and then again later turned it into a book, which again, I said last week, I've never read the book, but I read the article. I know what the 5 regrets are, so I can kind of take it from there, instead of I'll share with you my thoughts instead of her thoughts. If you want her thoughts, by all means, read the book. But I'm going to take it in the direction that works best for what I do. And for those of you that are new to the Point of Impact podcast, most of our episodes are exactly like this one. We don't do the interview style that's so popular with many podcasts. Nothing wrong with that. Have interviewed people through the years, through the seasons. This is our 7th season, but most of the time it's me talking about various topics and themes. And this is one of the themes of regrets. A lot of people struggle with their regrets in life, and I want to help you with that. Again, the first message, the 4 keys to breaking free, that's my original content on that. And of course, it's all original content, but here I'm using the 5 regrets. So we started last week with the 5 regrets of the dying. And so today is, it's kind of wild sounding, but I wish I would have chosen to let myself be happy. And that takes some unpacking for sure. I have done multiple episodes on happiness on this podcast, and yet today will be different. I'll come at it from a little different direction through the lens of regret. So before we jump into that, and I don't want to take too much time because I got a lot to talk about today. All of our episodes, by the way, are 30 minutes long. They're always 30 minutes. Every single 200 and some episodes, they're always going to be that same 30-minute time frame. So we try to stay right in that zone and not just go back and forth. So we are not what you would call a long form podcast. It's a couple hours long. It's something that you can listen to in one sitting. That's our niche. That's where we're landing, me speaking rather than interviewing and doing 30-minute podcast episodes. Usually in the beginning, I just like to, talk to people, tell people what's up. The only thing I'm going to do today along those lines is just to say that the Maverick Leadership book, of which I have a chapter entitled Inspirational Leadership, is now out. I just learned between our last episode that even though the book came out on the 15th on maverickleadershipbook.com, if you want to get it on Amazon or Walmart or Barnes & Noble or those type of retailers, and if you would prefer a hardcover instead of a soft cover, you have to wait till November 1st. So unfortunately, gonna have to wait another week here to get the copy if you want a hardcover, or if you want to buy it from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, all those places, Target, whatever retailers. If you want the book right now, just go to maverickleadershipbook.com and you can order it directly from the website, from the publisher. Do it that way. But again, I think it's going to be a great book with just a wide variety of authors. You have military people, great insights on leadership, business people, and then you've got someone like myself and Charles Neiman, who is another Christian leader out of El Paso, Texas, has a great church there. So lots of different voices, and should be great. All right, let's jump in here today. So regret number 2. Sounds funny to say, but choosing to be happy. It sounds sort of weird, and you may think that that's somehow odd or strange. But I think that when you come right down to it, you can really understand it. I wish I had let myself be happier. That's basically it. I should have let myself be happier. And of course, you can let yourself be happier, but it's gonna take a choice. You got to choose happiness. Happiness is a choice. I have an entire episode on that, by the way. People regret being stuck in unfulfilling patterns and habits. That's what it comes down to. It's not a time in life. It's not whether you're a man or a woman, young or old, even wealth. These are not the markers of happiness. Happiness is a choice, or more specifically, a series of choices that we make. Happiness isn't waiting in the next big thing. It's built in the choices you make every day. Now, sometimes we just think like this: if I get that job, then I'll be happy. If we buy that house, I'm going to be happy. If I find the right relationship, I'm going to be happy. But happiness comes from how you live today, engaging in what brings you joy, choosing to thrive and not just to survive. Happiness isn't something that just lands on you one day. It's a result of living in a certain kind of way. It is the result of that. It is the result of choices that you make. So you don't have to wait for it to all of a sudden appear in your life. You can make the kinds of choices that will bring you to a place of happiness. You don't have to look back with regret and say, I wish I would have let myself be happy. I wish I would have chosen to be happier. You can choose to be happier. You can let yourself be happy. So where does it start? And I think this is absolutely where it starts. You have to be honest with yourself. The first choice for happiness is to be honest with yourself about your life. And one of the great stories in the Bible that illustrates this so perfectly is the story of when Moses went up to Mount Sinai to get the 10 Commandments, and he left his brother, who was the high priest, in charge of the people. So just real quick history lesson, if you don't know, Moses was essentially the leader, the president, the prime minister, whatever you want to call him. He was the top guy leading the Hebrew people. Aaron was the top spiritual leader. So Moses was like the political, governmental, if you would. Remember, this is a nomadic people, so, no set government per se, but he was the guy who was leading them. And in fact, by the way, not to get way off here, but Moses, if you study his life, would be in anybody's list of the greatest leaders of all time. If you know anything about leadership, again, just wrote a chapter and a book on leadership. So I wrote an entire book on leadership earlier in my career. So I'm just telling you, I've spoken on it all over the world, literally Russia, South America, Europe, all over. I've spoken on leadership. And I'm telling you that Moses would be amongst the list of the greatest leaders of all time. So he was an incredible leader. So his brother was left in charge. So in that particular time, he was already the spiritual leader, but just let me go do this, get these 10 Commandments. And so then Moses comes down from Mount Sinai, and imagine you're coming down a mountain, so you have a viewpoint, you have an outstanding viewpoint to see, and he comes upon this scene of the people, and they're just absolutely like in this giant kind of like party orgy. I mean, it's bad. It's really, really, really bad. And he comes upon this scene, and he is absolutely furious. He ends up smashing the Ten Commandments tablets. He's so upset with this scene that he comes across. So he goes to his brother and he says, "What in the world is going on here?" And Aaron's response was terrible leadership. He basically tried to blame it on the people. These people, they're difficult. Well, no one would know about these people more than Moses. He is their leader. He would know. And Aaron is like, they're so difficult. And so what happened was, and let me just, by the way, the scene I described with all the partying and all the debauchery, I left one important thing out. The thing that was the most upsetting of all the things. They were all upsetting to Moses, but he's coming down literally with tablets that have this as one of the commandments. There is in the middle of this whole scene a giant golden bull. Yeah, they're worshiping an idol. Right in the Ten Commandments, right? Don't worship idols. And they're worshiping an idol. And basically, Aaron's like, the people wanted, they didn't know where you were. They didn't know if you were dead or how long you were going to be gone. And they got nervous. And so this is what they wanted. But you're the spiritual leader, Aaron. You're supposed to tell them it's wrong. And so then the next response from Aaron is basically like, well, Moses is like, okay, so they're upset, concerned, but what's with the idol? And it's just an absolutely hilarious response from Aaron. Aaron's like, I don't know what happened. It's like the people, brought all their gold to me, all their jewelry, and we melted it all down. And I threw the gold in the fire, and out came the idol. Well, that's not what happened, because we're told what happened, which is the people did bring all the gold and they did melt it down. That all is true. And then it says that Aaron fashioned an idol. Aaron went directly against what he knew to be right as a leader, as a spiritual leader. So he just completely lied to himself and lied to his brother about what really happened. And so the whole thing about happiness is, you've got to be honest with yourself. The psychological term would be self-awareness. You have to be self-aware. You have to examine your life. You have to be ruthlessly honest about your level of happiness and what's making you happy and what isn't. And I can just tell you, as someone who's been in leadership a long time, it's remarkable how lacking in self-awareness people can be. It's like everyone knows this about you but you. It's just remarkable. I just had this experience again, for the millionth time with someone. It's just like, do you not see it? Everyone else sees it. How are you so blind to this? So self-awareness is enormously important. And I would say to you, if you struggle with it, I would go see a counselor or a therapist and get them to help you to be able to be self-aware. Because if you can't see stuff about yourself, then you're not going to be happy. You've got to be honest with yourself. Now you say, I don't know that I need to do that. Well, maybe you do, maybe you don't. And, again, maybe you do. But if you say you don't, then you got to be honest. And this is where the honesty starts then. You have to look at your patterns. And I would say that the way that you choose to be happy is altering your patterns. So patterns become a part of our day-to-day routine. That's just how life is. I mean, the truth of the matter is that a lot about life is routine. But these routines may not be bringing you happiness. So you have to get out of old patterns that do nothing for your happiness. Now, again, there's just patterns, and we all know what they are, that they're neither here nor there as far as the impact on your happiness. I mean, you there's patterns, right? You're just going to get up, make coffee and, get dressed, take a shower, eat your breakfast, get to your job, get the kids off to school. This is life. This is just the routine nature of life. There are meals to be cooked. There's, a house to be cleaned. There's a yard to be mowed. I mean, this is stuff that you have to do. It's part of being a human being. It's hard, and it's certainly part of being an adult. I'm not talking about that stuff. I'm talking about other patterns. So you might say, well, like what? Okay, like this. Putting off a project that you really want to do. You've talked about it, you've talked about it, and you've talked about it, and you've never done it. This is how you get to the end of your life with regrets. I wish I would have chosen to be happier. You mean like the project that you always wanted to do that you never did? Here would be another one. Waiting for the big thing to happen. Then I'll be happy. Like I was saying earlier, if I get the job, if I get the house, if I find the right person to marry. Now listen, life is definitely filled with big things that can bring you happiness, no doubt about it. But you're not going to be happy if that's all your life is just the big things. Not to mention the waiting for them. There's many smaller things that you don't have to wait for that can bring you a great degree of happiness. And those are the things you need to be practicing right now, today. Do not be in some kind of pause, like I hit the pause button and I'll start to play again when it happens. No, life is not meant to be lived on pause. It's meant to be lived on play. Get going. Find the joy and the happiness in the smaller things, and you can. They are there. Sometimes you have to notice them. Sometimes you have to look a little more and realize, wow, this is really good stuff what's happening here with my family, or I'm really enjoying this hobby that I have. I really appreciate this marriage that I'm in, and there's happy moments in all those things if you look for them. Here's another pattern. This whole thing with social media, and especially comparison. It's just an absolute ticket to unhappiness. Comparison is the thief of joy. Oh, look at so-and-so. They just did this. They just went there. Oh, look at that. They just got this. It's a guaranteed way to be discontented, which is another word for being unhappy. If you're going to compare your sort of season you might be in or moment you might be in of just sort of normal, regular life with someone else's highlight reel, then you're always going to end up in that sense of unhappiness. Just like when you post your happy thing and someone else is in their normal and they look at yours. I mean, it's disastrous. It's helping no one and creating enormous amounts of unhappiness. So don't compare. Maybe you got to get off the social media stuff as much because that's all you end up doing. Or maybe you can just go, well, good for them. They're having one of their moments and that's great. My moment will come. I would say any pattern that's keeping you stuck and unfulfilled is a pattern that needs to be altered. Any pattern. whatever it might be. Again, there are routines in life, but even some of those, can be changed up. Like maybe you drive a different way to work, or maybe you try something different that you haven't done before, just to change things up and bring that kind of newness into your life. So many people fall into, really, truthfully, it's not a pattern, it's a rut. And everything is the same. Like every day it's the same beginning, and then, it's your work, or it's whatever it is that you're doing, school, caring for the home and children, and then the night comes, and then you do the same thing, sitting in front of the TV, and then you go to bed and you repeat the same thing over again. It's a rut. It's beyond a pattern. Now, if you're going to choose to do some new things, you got to choose them wisely. You want to develop new interests and activities, but you want to avoid habits and patterns and behaviors that'll hurt your life. It almost sounds funny to say, but it's true. You just say, I think I'm going to start smoking. I think I'm going to start going to bars more. I think I'm going to stay out later. You can change things, and that's not going to bring you happiness. That's just going to bring you heartache and pain. So, in fact, some of you, those are the patterns you're in right now that you need to stop, or you're never going to be happy. So when I talk about new interests and activities, I'm talking about the right ones. But you will end up regretting your passivity more than action. And I talk about this in that 4 keys to breaking free from regret. That short-term people regret things they've done that they wish they hadn't done. But long-term, inevitably long-term, and certainly people that are dying, it's the things they wish they had done that they didn't do. So the question would be, do what you enjoy, like what makes you happy? Have you even thought about that? Like, are you so stuck in this rut that you haven't even been like, what would make me happy? What would make me happy? What do I want to do? Maybe it's buy the tickets. Like you've always said, I would love to go to that game, that concert, that festival. And you never do it. It's just do it. Just go. Buy the tickets. Save up the money. Maybe it's trip, taking a trip. People are always talking to me. Oh man, you take so many great trips. Oh, you take the greatest trips. Like as if I am like a multimillionaire and I can just go where I want. I'm not a multimillionaire. I am someone who knows how to use frequent flyer miles and knows how to find deals and the third night free. And I do know a lot about that stuff, and you can save thousands of dollars. And trips that seem so expensive do not need to be nearly as expensive. And you can, sometimes you just can hit it right, like some of my trips during the pandemic time, they just were phenomenal deals because people weren't traveling. But I said, I'm not stopping traveling just because of this. And I never did. Went to I think 7 or 8 countries. I'm not stopping just because this thing's happening. Now I did have to take some tests in a couple places before I could leave, whatever, whatever it takes is what it takes. There were way less people. I went to Yellowstone, right? The summer of the pandemic, just having, when it was just starting and there were just so fewer people there. It was just so great. So the point is that you can do the trip. You can, where there's a will, there's a way. You just have to find a way to do it, and you can. I think what's really dangerous is what I just call the false choice. The false choice, which is if I do that, I won't have time for this. And this is what I would put into the classic either or. And those of you who've heard me know I'm a huge proponent of both and thinking, and I am very much not a fan of either or thinking. And I would put the false choice in the either or category. If I do this, I won't have time for that. All right, let's just look at some of these, okay? If I start exercising, then I won't have time for my devotions. I've been exercising and have time for my devotions for years and years and years. Nice try. It can be done. Now, you may have to wake up a little earlier, which means you may have to go to bed a little earlier, which means you may be spending or wasting less time watching TV. So is that really a bad thing? Probably not. If I join that group, I won't have time for my family. Again, no. Because the truth is, the supposed time for your family, you're not even necessarily all that time's being used with your family. So that going to this small group once a week is not going to alter that at all. In fact, the things you learn in that small group, the relationships you develop in that small group will make you better with your family. Here would be like another one. I can enjoy life or I can eat salads the rest of my life. You're like, no, you don't have to eat salads the rest of your life. You just can't go crazy all the time. There's a reason they call it a cheat day. By the way, it's not cheat weekend. Some people, I don't know what happened. Well, you made it into cheat weekend. Like you started on Friday and it didn't end till Sunday night. Like, come on. Cheat day is one thing. Cheat day is 1 out of 7, right? Not 3 out of 7. So you can still have ice cream and donuts and pizza, hamburgers. I have all those things. I've been in shape my entire life. So you can do it, but you just can't go crazy doing it. So this is false choice stuff. Man, if you're not careful, you got that kind of either or thinking going, and this is what's keeping you from creating the new habits and patterns that really will bring you happiness throughout your life. So here's another one, and this is a part of the choosing happiness, which is tomorrow thinking. Like, just to stay with the diet thing, I'll eat whatever today because tomorrow I'm going to start a diet. That it doesn't work that way. I can spend whatever I want during the Christmas season because in January I won't spend any money. It's just, those aren't the kind of wise choices that you need to make. I think more about other people's happiness more than I do my own happiness. Again, it's good to think about other people's happiness, but it's not good if that is taking precedence over the choices that you need to make for your happiness. And hopefully those two things are not like necessarily opposed to one another. There's lots of choices I've made that have made me happy, and they've made a lot of other people happy too. It's just a choice that you make. It just is. There's no way to get away from this basic concept that happiness is a choice. You've got to really look at your life honestly and just ask yourself, am I living the life that I want to live that is going to make me happy? I regret that I didn't choose to be happier. Well, then make sure you choose that you're going to be happy. And the things that are blocking your happiness need to change. And you need to make the kinds of choices that you know will bring happiness in your life. And do the things. Don't put them off. No one is guaranteed tomorrow. Trust me. I've had 3 people die in my life in the last couple of months, all of whom were shocking to me. You're not guaranteed a number of years on this earth. Start working on your happiness, choosing your happiness today. Have a great week.
You've been listening to the Point of Impact podcast with Rick McDaniel. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to you joining us for our next episode.